June 12th, 2023. 80% of Reddit was completely unusable, causing a rippling effect across the entire internet. The whole internet, in defense of developers, protested the Reddit corporation's aggressive strategy of making a single developer pay $20 million to continue operations of his application. Why did a single programmer need to pay $20 million? And how did one of the largest social media websites just completely shut down? In this video, we'll recount the infamous story of the war between Reddit and third-party app programmers that began in April 2023 and is still continuing to this very day. If you're new here, then my name is Lewis. I'm on a mission to help inspire developers and tech enthusiasts. So let's start all the way from the very beginning. But first, we have to define what is an API. Application Programming Interface is a way for developers to get access to features without using the user interface like regular users. When you open up your browser and then type in reddit.com, what's sent to you is a ton of different content. An HTML page that's created on the spot with data coming from a database, CSS to style everything, and JavaScript to make things interactive. And for regular users, this is great, but as a programmer, how can I just get the data so I can incorporate it within my app? So to help with this, companies create public APIs that can be used for developers to build apps using the data on these websites. Dropbox, Facebook, OpenAI, Netflix, Twitter are all just to name a few. And by letting developers create applications around your product, you can create a new monetization pathway. You create a product that becomes reliant on many other applications and more exposure to the central source. And believe it or not, one of the early pioneers with the whole free API model was Reddit. Using a framework like the Python Reddit API wrapper or the HTTP method, you could create apps that use Reddit's data like advanced moderation tools, helpful response bots, Reddit disguised as Microsoft Outlook, and more popularly, third-party applications. After Alien Blue was purchased by Reddit, users really did not like the official Reddit app. This created an opportunity for a developer to make the best way to use Reddit. Announcing Apollo, a brand new gorgeous Reddit app for iPhone. Christian Selig, a former Apple intern, tells everyone about an app that is close to completion, a Reddit application that will strictly follow the Apple design using the Swift programming language. The significance of this is that most modern day applications use a framework that can hold the code base in one spot, but can compile into different platforms like iOS and Android. I am not a fan of how they're trying to get one central look across iOS and Android. However, when you go one layer down though, you have the flexibility to make an app perform better and use native gestures. And that's exactly what Christian did. So on Monday, October 23rd, 2017, Apollo was released with critical acclaim from its users. Large thumbnails, smooth gestures, comment organization, jump between subreddit. Apollo signified what already made Reddit unique compared to other social platforms. A deep community relationship with extremely passionate people. Apollo, as well as other third-party applications, were being built by the community of what they thought Reddit should be. And yet again, the third-party applications was the best way to use Reddit. April 18th, 2023.
Thought it was a major advance in artificial intelligence.
Or write sonnets with ChatGPT.
ChatGPT.
For a company called Midjourney.
DALL-E 2 or Midjourney.
How can ChatGPT make me money?
ChatGPT, Midjourney, and thousands of other AI tools have already caused extreme disruption across all industries. As you already know, large language models like ChatGPT or GPT-4 require a lot of information to train on. And one of the most valuable way to train an AI that chats with you is with Reddit data. Multi-billion-dollar companies profiting off of the data coming from Reddit, all for free. Creating a healthy ecosystem for Reddit data and Reddit data API access, improved developer platform. Although vague, the post talks about how the terms and services will be changing for developers using the current APIs, as well as building native moderation tools. At the time, it seemed like a very interesting monetization strategy to allow large language models to use your data, but at a cost. Pricing, however, is still uncertain. The Reddit corpus of data is really valuable, but we don't need to give all of that value to some of the largest companies in the world for free. This is all ahead of their rumored IPO.
Good to see everybody. See you soon.
On May 31st, 2023. Christian, the developer of Apollo, has a scheduled meeting with Reddit to discuss API pricing. And understandably so, having a free API that you could use is not sustainable as a business. Perhaps a paid service would allow for a better relationship and a mutual benefit between Reddit and Apollo. However, that optimism quickly deteriorated. $12,000 for 50 million requests. To put this into perspective, the Apollo app goes through 7 billion requests per month. Quick math, and this goes to $20 million per year with this metric. Even if all free users were kicked from Apollo, each user would be using over double what the current Apollo premium subscription costs. You logged into Reddit right now and saw a list of subreddits, your user information, and maybe some notifications for a replied message or something. Well, right there, that's just 3 requests being made by one user in just one interaction. When you click on a comment section, that is another request. When you click on a profile of a user and it shows their information and their subreddits, well, that's multiple other requests. It adds up really, really fast. Reddit's claims is that the pricing was reasonable and based on reality. Reddit also claimed they would not operate like Twitter, which did something similar at the time with $42,000 for 50 million tweets. Determining the value of this data is really tough, but here's how it would work. Reddit made around $600 million in revenue in a year and has around 430 million monthly active users. To put a dollar value on a single user or revenue per user with the metrics given, that would be 12 cents per month. But under this new API pricing, Apollo will basically be paying $3.51 per user, which is 29 times higher than industry estimates. And the worst part is that there was no flexibility going to be given either. This number was firm. Third-party apps were in critical danger. App developers are always in critical danger if vulnerabilities in their app are missed. And thanks again to our sponsor Snyk, keeping your source code secure and up to date is extremely easy. AIs like GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT are helping programmers code a lot faster, but over 53% of programmers say that AI has introduced vulnerabilities into their code. So how do we prevent this from happening? Thanks to Snyk code that is powered by DeepCode AI, you can detect vulnerabilities in real time through an integration of your favorite code editor and fix right after you paste in the code. This includes the packages that you install as well, as Snyk intelligently analyzes your configuration files, dependencies, and your Docker containers. So when I generate some code to write a user to the database, Snyk is able to tell me right away that something isn't adding up. This way you can get the benefits of AI generating code for you while also keeping your code up to date with security standards. With Snyk's generous free forever plan, you can feel more confident writing code that's written by you or your AI buddy. I've been using Snyk personally for a very long time, and it's an absolute privilege for them to be a long-term sponsor of this channel. Sign up for Snyk for absolutely free with the link in the description below, and start actually having confidence in your deployments. The final call that any programmer doesn't want to make. Apollo will close down on June 30th this year. After an amazing 8 years after his Apple internship and working full-time on Apollo and even getting a shout out from Apple executives on the app, it was time to shut down. And this decision was 100% set in stone because communications between Reddit and Apollo started to get sour. Why not buy Apollo if the opportunity cost is costing $20 million? So Christian discussed this in a call on May 31st. Can you please comment publicly about the internal Reddit claim that you tried to blackmail them for $10 million payout to stay quiet? Apollo threatened us, said they'll make it easy if Reddit gave them $10 million. This guy behind the scenes is coercing us. He's threatening us. What seemed like an alright call quickly became slanderous. But luckily, the call was completely recorded by Christian. In Canada, a one-party consent system is completely legal and valid when it comes to virtual calls. In the call, Christian reiterates that if Apollo is worth $20 million, why not just cut a check for $10 million? At first, Reddit interpreted this as a threat right away and even said so. After a bit of confusion on both ends, they discussed it completely and both came to the conclusion that no threat was being made and that it was just a big misunderstanding. Here's the part of the audio with the transcript.
If Apollo's opportunity cost currently is $20 million at the 7 billion requests in the API volume, if that's your yearly opportunity cost for Apollo, cut that in half, say for 6 months, Bob's your uncle.
So you cut out right at the end, right? And I'm not asking you to repeat yourself for a third time, but you legit cut out right at the end.
No.
Said, if your opportunity cost is 10 million, and then I lost you. So
Okay, no, sorry.
One more time.
Yeah, one more time. I was just saying, if the opportunity cost for Apollo is currently 20 million a year, and that's a yearly, apparently ongoing cost to you folks. If you want to rip that Band-Aid off once, and have Apollo quiet down, 6 months.
Yeah.
Beautiful deal. But again, this was mostly a joke. I'm just saying that if the opportunity cost is that high, and if there's something that would make this easier on you guys, that could happen too.
Yeah.
But
I don't know what you mean by quiet down, because I find that to be.
No. Sorry, I didn't mean that.
I'm going to be very straightforward with you too. It feels like a threat, and like I'm just like, oh, interesting, because one of the things that we're trying to do is to say, hey, you have been using our APIs free of cost for many, many years, and we have absolutely sanctioned that you have not broken any rules, and now we're changing our perspective for what we are telling you, and I know you disagree with it, that hey, we want to operate on a thing that is financially footing, and so hopefully you mean something completely different from what I said. But when you say like go quietly, I just want to.
How did you take that? Sorry, could you elaborate?
Oh, like because you were like, hey, if you want this to go away,
I said if you want Apollo
make
to go quiet, like in terms, like I would say it's quite loud in terms of its
go
API
quiet
usage.
as in that. Okay,
like
got
it's
it.
a very
Sorry, that's a complete misinterpretation.
Yeah. No, it's all good.
I apologize immediately.
The confusion comes when Christian says that they can have Apollo quiet down. The person at Reddit thinks of this as Christian saying that he doesn't have to cause any drama for a certain amount of money. Quiet down as in not cause a scene, kind of like mafia talk, blackmail. However, after talking about it, Christian then clarifies that quiet down was referred to having the API usage being stopped completely if bought by Reddit. Quiet down simply just meant that Reddit does not have to pay for 7 billion monthly requests per month. Despite this being clarified in the call, Reddit found this to be a great opportunity to make Apollo the bad guy. Continuing this, Reddit also accused Apollo of being inefficient and not using their API correctly. The fact that an average user uses 360 API calls per day must be high. The CEO of Reddit also claimed that Apollo does web scraping to deliver notifications faster, but has done no effort to be a good citizen of the internet. Christian then posts the Apollo backend for the whole world to see. The Apollo backend is written in the Go programming language, which is known to be easy to read, have great performance, and great developer experience. Upon inspection, the app doesn't show any sort of major red flags in the way it's designed. All data being received is done through an authenticated web request. Also provided was a documented trail of emails also showing Apollo helping Reddit identify bugs and maintaining good status on the API. But the worst part is that even if the community was willing to pay a new price for the Apollo app, he only had 30 days to make these changes. And 30 days to make these changes is not realistic. It doesn't make any sense. For context, in March of 2020, Apple bought weather app Dark Sky. But before shutting down the API, Apple gave a year and a half to developers to transition off their APIs before they shut it down. And then when that date came near, they extended it by another 12 months. 30 days of transition time versus 30 months of transition time. All of these concerns being sent by Christian. However, not a single email back. All of this was documented on a post called Apollo will close down on June 30th. Reddit's recent decision and actions have unfortunately made it impossible for Apollo to continue. And of course, the post went absolutely viral on Reddit. Redditors were disgusted at the actions done by big tech to crush third-party developers and then pin the blame on them. The post kept growing in popularity, appearing in separate subreddits, and even catching the attention of the mainstream media.
Third-party apps for the use of Reddit data.
Over $20 million per year to operate, given Reddit's current API prices.
Millions of people questioned the authenticity behind the website that they cared so much about. But the controversy was a surprise to Reddit, so much so that Reddit CEO Steve Huffman posted a statement. Addressing the community about changes to our API. Steve Huffman already reiterates points that we basically know at this point. Free data API will be roughly 100 queries per minute, 0.24 cents per 1,000 API calls, updated mod tools and accessibility. And then after that, Question and answers started immediately. Thousands and thousands of downvotes. The elephant in the room. Christian's post in regards to Apollo. Somebody asked why they claimed they were being threatened and blackmailed. And this is what the Reddit CEO had to say. His joke is the least of our issues. His behavior and communication with us has been all over the place, saying one thing to us while saying something completely different externally, recording and leaking a private phone call to the point where I don't know how we could do business with him. This then prompted a reply from Christian. Please feel free to give examples where I said something differently in public versus what I said to you. I give you full permission. And at this point, it was now official. Reddit has doubled down on their war with programmers. If Christian's post ignited anger, then Steve Huffman's reply quadrupled it. What can Redditors do to protest the actions being done by Reddit? Well, they can leverage basically the only thing that they have: free labor. On Reddit, moderators are basically what control the website, and they don't get paid a single dollar. Our Safe Third-Party Apps was a centralized forum for moderators to discuss protest methods, and just like Domino's, subreddits announced shutdowns of their entire subreddits exponentially. From massive subreddits like iPhone, music, gaming, funny, science, other moderators from other subreddits joined in on this protest of not allowing submissions to be made in your subreddit. And so it was agreed upon. June 12th to the 14th, the days that Reddit will disappear. In minutes before June 12th, moderators shut down their subreddits one by one. 9,000 subreddits would completely fall off the internet temporarily. Reddit was a thriving hub on the internet to an absolute wasteland. During these days, Reddit was almost unusable, no content to see. Even Google mentioned how search results have been awful during these days that the Reddit Blackout was happening. A war between the platform and the platform owners has come to a crucial state. Now that the whole site is inactive, it was Reddit's turn to figure out what they were going to do next. June 13th, halfway through the scheduled Reddit Blackout, The Verge obtains an internal memo that Steve Huffman shared to Reddit staff. In this memo, Steve Huffman lets employees know the current situation and that most will come back by Wednesday. And like all their previous blowups at Reddit, this one will pass as well. How Apollo and Reddit is Fun will shut down, that they are still in conversation with others, specifically how 2 accessibility-focused apps will be exempt from these new changes. The internal note was dismissive, something that we already know Reddit feels about this whole situation. Unfortunately, this leaked memo escalated the situation. Subreddits announced an indefinite blackout with no opening date in sight. This happening during some peak Reddit times, like the NBA Finals or the collapse of the Philadelphia Interstate 95. Reddit's new goal was to redirect the anger from them onto the moderators shutting down the website, and it started to work. June 15th, 2023. Reddit CEO Steve Huffman started making appearances on different media outlets. On NPR, he says, "It's a small group that's very upset, and there's no way around that. We made a business decision that upset them. The protest, what it really affects is the everyday users, most of whom aren't involved in this or the changes that spurred this." And on NBC News, he said, "If you're a politician or a business owner, you are accountable to your constituents. So a politician needs to be elected, and a business owner can be fired by his shareholders." And I think on Reddit, the analogy is closer to the landed gentry. The people who get there first get to stay there and pass it down to their descendants. And that is not democratic. The Reddit CEO was deploying the classic divide and rule strategy. Start making the subreddit moderators seem like inherited landowners that only care about their own interests and is stopping everyone from using the platform. June 16, 2023. The Verge was able to get another note that Reddit sent to moderators who still had their subreddits closed. "If there are mods here who are willing to work towards reopening the community, we are willing to work with you to process a top mod removal request, or reorder the mod team to achieve this goal if mods higher up the list are hindering reopening. Our goal is to work with the existing mod team to find a path forward and make sure your subreddit is made available for the community which makes its home here." On mod support, when this question was asked, a concerning answer was brought up. "If a moderator team unanimously decides to stop moderating, we will invite new active moderators to keep these spaces open and accessible to users." And of course, this sparked fear in all moderators across Reddit. Funny, one of the biggest subreddits, reopened and pinned this message. Reddit Inc. is intentionally killing off third-party apps with exorbitant API call prices. They are significantly damaging their site and reputation in the process. A lot of subreddits opened in fears that they would get banned for doing this, including our Apple. And this opened up some other creative ways of protest from the Reddit community. On our picks made it so that they are only allowed to post John Oliver. Our tech support made it so that you had to say Daddy Spez in the beginning. Programmer humor made it so that you can only speak in camel case. And some turned their subreddits not suitable for work so they can prevent ads from being shown. Earlier that year in February, a Reddit employee received an email. Click the link, it all looked normal. Username, password, two-factor authentication key were all typed in, hoping they were able to access their intranet software for admin purposes. But nothing seemed to work. Perhaps just a poor interconnection. Oh well. What really happened is the hacker group Black Cat used a phishing technique to collect sensitive information from a high-up Reddit employee. The data inserted was sent back to their own servers. And once they were able to log in using these credentials, they were able to grab a ton of information like user data and source code. When Reddit reported this breach, they concluded that there was nothing of concern. But forward to June 17th of this year, the Reddit files was posted on the Black Cat's website. 80 gigabytes of user data. Apparently notified twice about the incident, Reddit made no attempt to find out what was stolen. Allegedly, loss of confidential data and statistics on how they track their users. The offer was $4.5 million in cash and to revert the API pricing changes. If credible, this is an intense bargaining chip against Reddit. However, as of this video, nothing has really come of it, so is it even credible? Well, who knows? Aftermath, the week ahead. For the rest of the week, Reddit continued to fight with the moderators, and sadly, it seemed like Reddit would win every single time. The Verge mentioned that Reddit has stopped asking questions. It will no longer comment on hearsay, unsubstantiated claims, or baseless accusations from The Verge. We'll be in touch as corrections are needed. And subreddits started to open back up. Despite some of them being a bit annoying to use, they were still usable in the state that they were in. Reddit cracked down on the subreddits that would only post not suitable for work content and replaced the moderators when they weren't cooperative. And as June 30th, the day that Apollo was shut down, this post was made. Today is Apollo for Reddit's last day, and I just released this last update. I just wanted to say a big thank you to the folks who have used and supported Apollo over the years. It's been the dream of a lifetime to build this app over the last 9 years. This post was a big thank you to the community for supporting him over 8 years and even during this whole Reddit API fiasco. He also discussed his journey with Apollo, developing it over the last 8 years. Shortly after that, the app no longer worked and is replaced with a new icon. And despite continuous uproar in the community, Reddit was able to completely remove any form of protest that happened. Reddit was successful in its ability to crush one of the biggest internet protests in history. But at the cost of what? So what can we learn about this whole Reddit blackout? One of the biggest assets that Reddit owns is the community data. Even myself included will admit that when I do a Google search, I'll always put Reddit at the end of it because I just know I'm gonna get better results and results that are actually given by a human. Creating an API that has paid usage isn't really something I'm against either. As a developer, I'm using paid APIs all the time for business or personal. And depending on the service it provides, I don't have an issue with paying for this. But let's take a company that specializes in giving API developer tools to developers. Deepgram, which is an audio intelligence company, has over $86 million in funding. For 0.0044 cents per minute, a 3-hour audio transcription would come to around 80 cents. If a developer wanted to do this type of technology on their own machine, it would take so much development hour times, as well as an insane computer to handle all of this AI. So at the end of the day, it's somewhat of a fair trade-off. With that in mind, is Reddit's data worth $20 million. Reddit is also entering a new business market, selling data to large language models to train on. Reddit was a massive place large language models took for free to train extremely smart AIs, and I get it. All of your data being taken for free to train models that make billions and billions of dollars. But this pricing change caused a ripple effect to the people that use their APIs the most. Third-party apps whose users were fans wanting to use Reddit to connect with their communities. However, let's not beat around the bush. Framing the API change in the large language model argument is realistically killing two birds with one stone. It's easy to point your finger at this large AI monster that is destroying businesses and stealing information, rather than just saying that you want to put third-party third-party apps into a corner. This pricing change does one thing. It wipes out the competition and it's doing exactly what it was intended to do, which circles back to this classic internet predicament where most of the time the best places to go for community is run by corporate interests and not community values. Let's talk about Apollo 2 for a second. When it comes to Apollo, this is sadly the risk you take when you rely on a single API provider. If you build an app that told you what to wear based on the weather, your app would look something like this. Your application, a weather API to get today's weather, a clothes API that maybe has some links to get some cool clothes to wear. Now, let's say the Lewis Weather APIs decides to charge you $1 million to start using its API. Well, you would have the opportunity to seek another vendor to get this information from. The value from this app isn't the weather necessarily, but instead is the output from a combination of different APIs. But when you look at Apollo though, the value is using Reddit, but just with a clean interface. So when Reddit pulls the rug from underneath you, well, you get wiped out. And the way Reddit treated developers like Christian was completely unacceptable. Something you always have to be prepared for when developing an app like this is the heavy reliance on a data source you cannot control. It's also not uncommon for businesses to provide a free or a very cheap API to developers so that they can integrate their tools deeply into their own products and then jack up the prices significantly because it's easier to pay up than to refactor. So was Apollo always going to be met with a fate like this? If you like this video, I have a video about how one line of code costed a company $1 million and how a random programmer fixed Grand Theft Auto 5. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.